With ABC News political director Rick Klein. Rick, welcome back. Nice chatting with you. Michael Bloomberg, or Mike Bloomberg, is now in the race officially. Why is he in, and especially so late?
Well, the former mayor is saying that he's running because he's more concerned than ever that President Trump could win re-election. It's a statement about the strength of the Democratic field, or lack thereof, that earlier in the year he ruled it out and said he would not do that. Instead, now he is back in the race, spending upwards of $37 million this week alone in TV ads. You can't be anywhere in the country almost that you're not seeing his ads in heavy rotation. And he is trying to jumpstart a campaign with a non-traditional strategy of essentially skipping the early states and waiting until the campaign goes national, hoping that he's going to have built up name recognition and gotten his biography out there in sufficient fashion that he's able to make a huge splash in what could be a chaotic early primary season.
Are there any similarities with Bloomberg and Tom Steyer? I mean, you have these two getting in late with lots of money.
Yeah, they're both rich white men who are able to marshal those resources. They've also worked extensively, both of them, on Democratic-aligned causes with their wealth. Bloomberg, though, I would note, is worth quite a bit more than Tom Steyer. He's worth upwards of $50 billion, one of the richest men on the planet. And that has the ability, at least, to reset all of the expectations of what he could bring. The fact that he could spend as much as he is in just the first week set that record. He could spend it at that kind of level literally every week up through the election and still only be spending maybe 1 or 2% of his fortune. So that is a level of wealth that we've never seen applied in presidential politics, whether that's Tom Steyer or Donald Trump for that matter.
Right. Okay, Joe Biden's still very much a factor here. Do you feel that he's weathered the initial storm, the debate issues, the early parts of this campaign, and is still a solid factor going forward?
Yeah, one way to look at this race is that despite everything that's been said and done and written about Joe Biden and his own performance, that he's pretty steady and that people trust him, they know him, they're comfortable with him, and you've seen his polling numbers hold firm. Another way to look is that there's signs or flashing warning signs everywhere around his candidacy. The concerns about other candidates eating into his support are very real and very acute. So I don't know which school to necessarily ascribe to, and then the Biden camp remains optimistic. But having Bloomberg's entry is another complicating factor. He certainly hasn't locked down the nomination, as many frontrunners would hope to do at this stage. We're about 2.5 months before the voting starts, and it's anyone's guess who wins Iowa, who wins New Hampshire, and beyond.
Yeah, we still have a long way to go. Former White House counsel Don McGhan, whether he testifies or not, what do you look at with him kind of looming here with the hearings?
I think the bigger impact is going to be how that influences others associated with this. Does Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, John Bolton, the former National Security Advisor, Mick Mulvaney, the Budget Director and Acting Chief of Staff, do those men get hauled before Congress? Because they may have really interesting things to say. The other big question is that whether the Democrats decide they want to wait around for this testimony. It could be months before they hear from these individuals, if they ever get there, and they may not have useful information. So do they view this as kind of a head fake or just a potential avenue that they don't want to go down? That's up to them to decide. And I think this was a rebuke to the White House theory that no one has to cooperate that's on the White House payroll. That has now been rejected very soundly by a federal judge. Though it's not the last word, it certainly is stinging, and I think it's going to color expectations moving forward.
Well, these impeachment hearings, especially the recent televised part of it, was done to sway American opinion, or at least let Americans see what's going on here. ABC News poll, 70% of Americans feel the president did something wrong in Ukraine, yet only 51% feel that it's worth removal from office. What are the factors that go into that wide discrepancy?
Yeah, and that's a giant number. That means that 1 in 5 Americans are simultaneously convinced that he did something wrong, but not convinced that he should be removed from office. That's the target zone if you're a Democrat trying to make the case on impeachment, to get that 51% inching closer toward that 70% number. And I think it really is about the severity of what's portrayed, because there's no real question around the facts. That's been established. We know what the president did. The paperwork is all backing that up, the transcript or the partial transcript, all of the testimony that we heard from Trump administration officials, current and former, over the last couple of weeks. All of that adds up to the same portrait. The question is what the consequences are and whether it deserves that ultimate political punishment of impeachment and removal from office. That, to me, is the difference between that 51 and that 70 number.
Yeah, and ultimately it's up for the Senate to vote on it, and the chances of the Senate voting for conviction are pretty slim.
Yeah, look, 20 Republicans would have to cross over and join all of the Democrats for the president to be removed from office. There's no sign of that happening. We should be clear, no sign. It isn't to say it couldn't happen, and I think it may be too early to prejudge outcomes in terms of public reaction. Maybe we're closer to the beginning of that part of the story than the end because we've only had 2 weeks of public hearings. But no, if you're looking just at cracks in the Republican armor, you're not going to find them.
ABC News political director Rick Klein. Rick, thank you again.
Thank you.